Chapter 6, Leadership Attributes. Chapter outline, Introduction, Personality Traits and Leadership, an alternative to traits, personality types, Emotional Intelligence and Leadership, Intelligence and Leadership, Summary. Leadership Attributes. Watch your thoughts, for they may become words. Watch your words, for they may become actions. Watch your actions, for they may become habits. Watch your habits, for they may become character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. Anonymous. This is so true. This is so true. Of course, and if it's anonymous, that means this was said a very long time ago, but it's very true today. Personality traits and leadership. So, personality has two meanings: public reputation, or the impression a person makes on others; identity, or how people see or define themselves. So I always tell people your reputation is not what you think, it's what others think. Your identity is how you define yourself, what do you believe you are, and what do you identify with, and what do you say that you belong to. Most research about the relationship between personality and leadership success and effectiveness is based on the trait approach. Traits are reoccurring irregularities or trends in a person's behavior. Trait approach to personality maintains that people behave the way they do because of the strengths of the traits that they possess. So your traits, when I see something in a person and I see it consistently, that's going to be considered a trait. Personality traits are useful for explaining why people act consistently in different situations. Knowing the difference in personality traits can help predict more accurately how people will tend to act in different situations. A leader's behavior reflects an interaction between his or her personality traits and various situational factors. Traits play an important role in determining how people behave in unfamiliar, ambiguous, or weak situations. Strong situations are governed by specific rules and demands and structural policies, which can minimize the effect that these traits have on behavior. So when you have situations where it's unfamiliar, unknown, or something different you've never encountered before, these traits will play a significant role into how somebody will behave. Understanding, when you look at people's traits, this is one reason why some people are identified as folks who are possibly good, high potentials, will do well in leadership, and while some people are identified as they should never be in leadership because of traits. And when you have strong situations, the thing about strong situations is they will keep traits kind of in line, whether they don't go too far to the bad or too far to the good because of the defined rules and the structure and the organization and the policies. The strength of the relationship between personality traits and leadership effectiveness is inversely related to relative strength of the situation. Personality traits are more closely related to leadership effectiveness and weak and ambiguous. So when you, like I said, when you have situations where you're not familiar, it's unknown, not a lot of structure, whatever else, these personality traits can take on and run, and they can run amok, actually, because they can almost run unchecked. So the five-factor or ocean model of personality, based on research, most of the trait-like terms that people use to describe other behavior patterns can be categorized into five broad personality traits. And I've always said this: we don't manage people. Leaders don't manage people. You manage personalities. And if you understand those personalities, it helps you understand the person. But most importantly, it helps you understand if you meet somebody 10 years from now and they have those same traits, you'll know what type of personality they are and you'll know how to deal with them. Openness to experience. And I like traveling to foreign countries and I enjoy going to school. Conscientious. I enjoy putting together detailed plans that rarely get into trouble. Extravagant. I like having responsibility for others and have a large group of friends. Agreeableness. I am a sympathetic person and I get along with others. Neuroticism. Neuroticism is a realm, calm, and pressure situations, and I take personal criticism well. So, looking at these factors. So, openness to an experience. Concern with curiosity, innovative thinking, and assimilating new information, and being open to new experiences. This is what you would like to see in a manager, somebody who's open. They're innovative thinker and they're creative and they're open and they're always looking for gathering, trying to get new information. Conscientiousness, concern with those behaviors related to people's approach to work, may be concerned more with management than with leadership, as people with higher scores are planful, organized, goal-oriented, and prefer structure. So these are people who would make, a lot of times this way, will make good managers, maybe not good leaders. And you got to have both. Extraversion involves behaviors more likely to be exhibited in group settings and are generally concerned with getting ahead in life. Generally, people who are more decisive, self-confident, and outgoing seem to be more effective leaders. And thus, extraversion is an important measure of leadership potential. So you look at this, and these are the things you want. You want somebody who's organized, who plans, who's goal-oriented, to be a leader. Because that's what you need in leaders. If you have somebody who's lacking in those areas, you're going to find out real quick you got some problems. Agreeableness, concern with how one gets along with, as opposed to gets ahead of others. Individuals high in agreeableness come across to others as charming, diplomatic, warm, empathetic, approachable, and optimistic. They can struggle with getting results through others. Okay, with this is good to a certain degree, but they got to be careful. They may struggle with getting results through others because they want to be liked too much. So they don't want to come off as being, I don't want to be mean and nasty. But if you have Sally and she's not doing her job and you've been talking to her for 3 months about getting her work done, that's a problem because she's not doing the job. But you're not looking at it from standpoint, your number one goal is not to hold her accountable and get results. Your number one goal is to for her to like you. Neuroticism, concern with how people react to stress, change, failure, and personal criticism. Difference in neuroticism can be difficult to observe in predictable routine situations, but become evident during times of uncertainty and crisis. So when things are calm, when the ocean is calm and everything's going real good, you won't pick up on this type of personality. But when things are in crisis situations or whatever else, now they're all over the place. And they may, and that's a leader. So if that's a leader who's all over the place and they're running around like they got their hair on fire, what do you think everybody else is going to do? Personality traits help examine leaders and followers, tendencies to act in consistent ways over time. Behavior manifestations of personality traits are often exhibited automatically and unconsciously. So again, behavior manifestations of personality traits are often exhibited automatically and unconsciously. Behaviors can be modified through experience, feedback, and reflection. The Ocean model is helpful in these ways. Helps leadership researchers categorize findings of the personality and the leadership performance research. Helps in profiling leaders. Seems to be universal, accepted across cultures. So now that's important, because that tells you if it's going across cultures that what we see in the United States, they would see in the United Kingdom, they would see in China, they would see in India. That's good. Because guess what? These personality traits are not just unique to the United States, they're all over the world. So you can see where a lot of places people will be using this. Building blocks of skill. So in order to get, easier to change, more difficult to change. So when you look at this, when you look at the easier to change, skills and competence, knowledge, experience. This is stuff that's actually be acquired through going to class or taking a course or actually doing. More difficult to change is intelligence, personality traits, values, interests, and motives and goals. So this is the stuff that happens to you from the time that you were born on the bottom, and they're more difficult to change because I basically like to refer to, this is how you're wired. You're wired, through your genetics and DNA, you can be but so intelligent. So so you can't increase that. Personality traits. This is more difficult to change because a lot of times that's also, if not in your hardwiring, is how you were conditioned. You're a product of your environment. Values, interests, and motives, same way. Where did you come from? What do you value? If you're a person who never was raised to never value teamwork, and you are now a leader and leading teams, that's a problem. So you can see where the things, how some things will be easy to change and some things are harder. Example of the ocean profile. So we see low, medium, high. So when we look at this, you see uh, uh, openness to experience. You got to have a low score there. Conscientious. You see extraversion is actually the highest profile. So you see agreeableness. So you realistically, that's going to be the one that you would want to see. If you had people working for you and they were getting assessed, you would want to see them high in extraversion. An alternate framework to describe the differences in people's day-to-day behavior patterns is through types of, or in terms of personality typology. Types are thought of as relatively discrete categories. So let's get into this. Most popular measure of preferences. The Myers-Briggs. This has been around for forever. The four basic preference dimensions in which people can differ are extraversion versus introversion, extroversion versus introversion, sensing versus intuition, thinking versus feeling, judging versus perceiving. The results for each of the four bipolar dimensions are used to create 16 psychological types. Preference advocates believe that individuals within any particular type are more similar to each other than they are to individuals in any other 15. So this is when you look at taking this Myers-Briggs was actually designed to try to help people to try to determine what type of person are you, because certain types of jobs, certain positions require a certain kind of person, and they wanted to make sure that I am getting the right type of person. And most importantly, if someone takes this, it helps you know too what type of person you are. So one of the things that it can help you is to help you know probably which jobs you should not take. Limitations of the Myers-Briggs. The four preference dimensions omit critical aspects of personality such as neuroticism. They are not stable over time. For effect, people are provided with descriptive statements that are personally flattering but so vague that they could apply to virtually to anyone. The Myers-Briggs dimensions and types are unrelated to career success or leadership effectiveness. Now, again, it's not perfect. So what they're laying out here for you are the limitations of it. This is extremely big. I wasn't aware of this to probably about 10 to 12 years ago, but this is extremely big. It's called emotional intelligence. You may hear it referred to as EQ. Ability model focuses on how emotions affect the way leaders think, decide, plan, and act. Defines emotional intelligence as the ability to accurately perceive one's own and others' emotions, generate emotions to facilitate thought and action, accurately understand the causes of emotions and the meanings they convey, regulates one's emotions. So this means I am in tune with my own emotions so that I can get things done, but I'm also in tune with that of my people who work for me, theirs as well. And I understand how to use my emotions to get things done or not. I can be sympathetic and empathetic when I need to be. Mixed model provides a broader and more comprehensive definition of emotional intelligence than the ability model because it includes more leadership qualities. More popular among human resource professionals than the ability model, but is no more predictive of job performance than the ocean assessments. So again, I can tell you that EQ has come up a lot. It may not be any more valid than the ocean assessments, but I can tell you it's more prominent, it's more prevalent today than the other assessments. Ability and mixed models of emotional intelligence. So you're going to see here where we've got a couple different ones here. So perceived emotions, managing emotions, using emotions. And, we've always people have always heard, don't be emotional, don't be emotional. And I've always said, you can be emotional if you're using positive emotions to do positive things. What they should say is don't be emotional to do negative things or use negative emotions. So as we look at perceiving emotions, mixed models, we look here, see self-awareness, emotional awareness, accurate self-assessment, self-confidence. As we look at the bar on interpersonal self-regard, emotional self-awareness. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to read through all of this. Go ahead and pause and just read through these. Same in here. Pause and read through those. So when we look at these, we look at the Mayer, Savoy, and Caruso emotional intelligence tests. Measure of the ability model of emotional intelligence. Ask subjects to recognize the emotions depicted in the pictures, what moods might be helpful in certain local social situations, and so forth. Bar-on has self and other youth and organizational measures of emotional intelligence. You see Goldman's emotional competency inventory, ECI, consists of 10 questionnaires to be completed by the individual and 9 others. So what they're doing is they're asking you a series of questions to get an idea, how do you think? Your responses will let them know, how do you think? And this is how they measure the EQ. I should say the assessment. Shows that people can be extremely ineffective. Implications of emotions shows that people can be extremely ineffective when their thoughts, feelings, and actions are misaligned. Popularized the idea that non-cognitive abilities can play important roles in leadership success. Helped bring emotion back to the workplace. Moderates employees' reactions to job insecurity and their coping ability towards stress when threatened with job loss. So again, this, remember, once upon a time it said no emotions, no emotions. This stuff is saying, you know what, emotions can be good. So you're seeing it more and more today. But it also shows you how your emotions, if they're not aligned properly, basically, if you're using, for a situation, you're using the wrong emotion, you're going to get a bad result. You have to understand when to use the emotions, use the right ones correctly. Here again, pause, read through. Pause, read through. So the emotional intelligence and the building blocks of skills. So when we look at here, we see the skills and competencies at top and knowledge and experience. So these are the ones that are easier to help someone with the emotional intelligence. The ones that are more difficult, analytical, practical, and creative. Personal traits and emotional intelligence. Values, interests, motives, and goals. So these all come into play. You can see it's much easier to work with the one or to try to help somebody in the areas on top. Once you get on that bottom row, those are ones that are going to be more difficult. They're not impossible, but they're more difficult. Intelligence. A person's all-around effectiveness in activities directed by thought. Intelligence is relatively difficult to change because of heredity, and can be modified, but can be modified with education experience. Intelligent leaders are faster learners, make better assumptions, deductions, inferences, are better at creating a compelling vision and strategy to make the vision a reality, can develop better solutions to problems, can see more of the primary and secondary implications of their decisions. So again, I said earlier, I don't know what you do for someone's intelligence. You can't change it but so much. There are certain positions that require a certain level of intelligence. And if one doesn't have it, they're just not properly suited for that position. And this is not saying anybody's dumb or stupid. This is because your genetics and how you were born, what you received from your parents and your ancestors. So that determines that. Now it can be modified a little bit, like I said, with education and experience. But for the reasons listed here, these are all the reasons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, of why you want intelligent leaders working for you. Building block of skills. So here, we look at the top, easier to change. Let's go down here to the bottom where it's more difficult. The intelligence, analytical intelligence, practical intelligence, creative intelligence, personality traits, emotional values. These are much more difficult to do because this is, again, this is going back into your genetics, your conditioning from when since you were a kid and all the way up to an adult. And so that has a lot to do with, there's no expression, a tiger can't change its stripes. And for the most part, it's true. But you can try to do things to make some stuff better at the bottom. And but I will tell you this: it is difficult, and you got to have somebody who's have a certain self-awareness, who's willing to say, you know what, I do want to be better in this category. Because if you're just telling them they need to be better and they don't believe they are, it's not happening. The triarchy theory of intelligence focuses on what a leader does when solving complex mental problems. Basic types of intelligence: analytical intelligence, general problem solving ability; practical intelligence, knowing how to adapt, shape, or select new situations to get their needs met; creative intelligence, ability to produce novel and useful work; test of creativity. So, test that assesses divergent thinking may have many possible answers, and the test that assesses convergent thinking may have one single best answer. So when you look at this, you see the intelligence we're looking at. There's different types of them. Well, depending upon where you're strong in one of these intelligence, where you're weak, is going to determine how you will operate. Ideally, what you would want to have is somebody who's strong in analytical, practical, and creative. Ideally, that's not the perfect leader, but that's one of the best leaders. Implication of the triarchy theory of intelligence. Leadership effectiveness or emergence is positively correlated with analytic intelligence. Sometimes personality is much more predictive of leadership emergence and effectiveness than analytic intelligence. In certain classes, analytic intelligence may have a curvilinear relationship with leadership effectiveness. Leaders' primary role is to build an environment where others can be creative. So when you think of that, that is it. For me, to sum it up in a nutshell, leaders' primary goal is to build an environment where others can be creative. That is if you're a leader. If you're a manager, you're not looking for that. You're looking for somebody to do things. Good leaders are going to be creative, but they will want their people to be creative too. To improve the group and organizational factors affecting creativity, leaders should be mindful that various sorts of incentives or rewards can have various effects on creativity. Creativity can be hindered if people believe their ideas will be evaluated. Again, creativity can be hindered if people believe their ideas will be evaluated. In order to develop new products and services, the level of turnover should be minimized in their teams, and clear goals are given. So when you have this, you want some groups to have some give them a certain type of incentives to get them to do the things you need them to do. Gives them autonomy to be able to make decisions, and you also want to have a certain work environment where you're not having a lot of turnover. Because if you're doing that, you're not you're not constantly working to create and get better. You're in a constant state of influx because you always constantly have people coming and going. A lot of times, what that means is your subject matter experts are also going, so you're starting over. Average intelligence test sorts by management level. So when you look at this average intelligence sorts by management level, you see supervisor, you see first line manager, you see middle manager, and you see executive. And you see these scores over here to the left going lateral. I'm going vertical. So as you can see, it requires things. And I can tell you, when they did a survey many years ago of CEOs of the big companies or whatever else, what they found is this: these men and women were extremely intelligent. Extremely. When they also did a study of the United States military branches, when they looked at the generals and the admirals, what they found too, these men and women were extremely intelligent. So in other words, it takes that to get to that level. Creativity killers. How to squelch the creativity of direct reports. So I won't read through all of it. I'll read through some of it. Hire clones. Basically, I'm just hiring people who are the same folks over and over. Take away all discretion and autonomy. Don't allow them to make any decisions. Everything they do, it must come through you. It goes through somebody. Create fragmented work schedules. Schedules that don't make sense or don't necessarily work for the type of work that you're doing or work for the people that you have working for them. Provide insufficient resources. If you're asking people to do a job, I can't think of anything more important or more stupid than when these people come and tell you, this is what we need to get the job done, and you tell them nope, or you tell them we can't do that. Focus on short-term goals. Always look at those short-term goals, because I always tell people, getting these short-term goals, those are the easier wins. And what they can do is help build momentum to get the longer-term goals and the long-term wins. Create tight time frames and rigid process. So the tighter the deadlines, the less flexibility processes have. So when you're asking somebody to do something, let's say you ask somebody to do something, and realistically, it takes 30 days to get that done. You give them 15 days or 20 days. Discourage collaboration and coordination. You need, in order for people to thrive and go together, they need to work together as a team. If you're discouraging collaboration and coordination, you're basically asking them to, they may be listed on paper as a team, but they don't function as one because you don't allow it to happen. They function as a group of individuals. Keep people happy. A happy employee is a productive employee. That can be done. Now, that ain't your sole purpose to keep them happy, but your sole purpose is to factor that into what it is you do. Destroy psychological safety. When you destroy psychological safety and stuff, this is when people don't feel good about their situation, their job, or the organization. Intelligence, stress, and cognitive resources theory provides a conceptual scheme for explaining how leader behavior changes under stress levels to impact group performance. Key concepts, CRT, intelligence, experience, stress, and group performance. Predictions. Greater experience but lower intelligence may account for higher performing groups in high stress situations. Leaders with high levels of experience may misapply old solutions when situations require creative solutions. So, great experience but lower intelligence may account for high performing groups and high stress. So, in other words, if you have a group that's doing some stuff and all of a sudden they're being asked to do some additional things that they were never asked to do before, and so it's brand new, a leader who only has experience and has low intelligence, he or she is good with what they used to do. Where they're going to struggle is trying to come up with new creative ways to help them do the new stuff. That's what it's saying. Problematic issues concerning CRT. There is a apparent dichotomy between intelligence and experience. Ability of leaders to tolerate stress differs. Leadership implications of CRT. Best leaders are often smart and experienced. Leaders may be unaware of the degree to which they are causing stress in the followers. Level of stress inherent in the position needs to be understood before selecting leaders. So there are some things that, this is not perfect, some problematic issues. But one of the things I can tell you is, what my experience is, when I saw really good leaders, I refer to them as transformational leaders, I did feel like they was both smart and experienced. I have also seen leaders who were causing problems who were not aware that they were the problem. It had to be brought to their attention. Summary. Personality traits, components of intelligence or emotional intelligence attributes positively affect a leader's ability to build a team or get results with others. The term personality has many different meanings, but it is mainly used to describe one's characteristic patterns of behavior. Research suggests a positive correlation between leadership success and the Ocean personality dimensions. Leaders who possess emotional intelligence may be more effective. Analytic intelligence, practical intelligence, creative intelligence theories are interrelated and help in understanding intelligence. That concludes this chapter.